The pregnancy test slipped from Zara Maddox's fingers and bounced off the cold tile floor of Marcus Kwon's private bathroom. She didn't bother picking it up. She already knew what it said. 2 lines. Bold, undeniable, impossible. Her back pressed against the wall as her legs threatened to give out beneath her, the floor-to-ceiling windows of his Seoul high-rise framing the Han River like a painting she no longer had the right to admire. Her reflection caught in the glass. Brown skin pale with shock, box braids dishevelled from sleep, chest heaving with the kind of panic that has no name. They had been careful. She had been careful. Zara. His voice came through the door like smoke through a keyhole, low and unhurried, wrapping around her name like it already belonged to him. Come out of there. She couldn't move. Her lungs felt like someone had filled them with concrete and left her to figure out breathing on her own. Zara. Again. Softer now, which was somehow worse. The kind of soft that came right before something irreversible. She forced herself upright, forced her hand to turn the knob, forced her legs to carry her out. And there he was, Marcus Kwon, leaning against the wall in the hallway like he had all the time in the world, shirt open at the collar, the black and red serpent tattoo coiling up from his chest and over his shoulder, scales disappearing beneath cotton. At 6'1", he wasn't the tallest man she'd ever met, but he was the most consuming. Like standing next to a controlled fire. You always felt the heat before you saw the flame. What stopped her cold wasn't his presence. It was his expression. He wasn't startled. He wasn't processing. He was waiting. Like a man who had already made peace with a decision you hadn't been told about yet. You knew. The words scraped out of her like gravel. Oh my God. You already knew. Marcus pushed off the wall and moved toward her. That slow, deliberate walk that had once made her feel like the most important person in every room. Now it made the walls feel closer. I've known for 11 days, he said. Zara's hand flew to the doorframe. Her knuckles went white. You knew before I did? He stopped a foot away, dark eyes moving over her face with a patience that bordered on cruel. He tilted his head slightly, almost thoughtful. The protection stopped 4 weeks ago. I made the decision. The hallway lurched. She grabbed the frame harder. You what? His voice stayed even, unhurried, the same tone she'd heard him use when dismantling business rivals across conference tables. I stopped using them. You were distracted. You trusted me. He let a beat pass. You always trusted me. Zara's hand came up fast, swinging before her brain caught up to her body. Marcus caught her wrist with a grip that was iron disguised as silk, firm enough to stop her, careful enough to leave no marks. Let go of me. He pulled her forward instead, closing the last foot between them until she could smell him. Sandalwood and something colder underneath. His free hand came to her jaw, tilting her face up. No, he said. And the word had no cruelty in it, only certainty. You are out of your mind, she breathed. You trapped me. I anchored us both. Something moved behind his eyes, something that looked impossibly like relief. Do you understand what it means, Zara, when someone in my position develops a weakness? When word spreads that Kwon Jae-sung has a woman he would break his own rules for? She stilled. Kwon Jae-sung. She had only ever heard that name whispered in financial circles, with the kind of reverence people reserve for natural disasters. "They will come for you," he continued. His thumb traced along her jaw, and her body betrayed her by not pulling away. "Every enemy I've made in 15 years, every man who wants to see me humbled, the moment they learn about you, about this, you become the target." Zara's mind was running backward, rewinding 3 months. The charity gala where they'd met, the conversations that ran past midnight, the way he'd listened to her talk about her research fellowship like it mattered to him, like she mattered to him. She had been falling and called it professional networking until it was too late to call it anything else. Then why? Her voice cracked on the second word. "If I'm a liability, if I make you vulnerable, then why would you do this?" "Because in 9 weeks, your fellowship ends." He said it quietly, and the quietness of it was the most frightening part. "You were going to fly back to London, back to your neat little life, back to a world where I was a footnote, a man you once spent a season with in Seoul." His jaw tightened. "I couldn't let that happen." "So your solution was to make that choice for me?" Her voice was climbing. "You decided my body, my future, none of it was mine to decide." He didn't flinch. "You walked into that gala in a green dress, arguing with the sommelier about West African wine pairings." He said it like the memory was something he kept somewhere close. "You had opinions about everything. You laughed at my jokes before I finished making them. You fell asleep on my couch with an academic journal on your face." He exhaled slowly. "Do you know how long it had been since someone fell asleep around me without fear?" "Stop it." She turned her face away. His lips grazed her temple, barely contact, barely real. "I tried to end it," he murmured. "Twice. I told myself clean breaks were merciful. But then you'd show up with groundnut soup from that stall near Insadong, mispronouncing the vendor's name just to make me correct you, and I would think, maybe I can keep this one thing. Just this." Zara's eyes burned. "By stealing my choice?" "Yes, and I won't pretend otherwise." His hand slid from her jaw to the nape of her neck, fingers pressing gently into her curls. "I am not a good man. I have done things I will not insult you by apologizing for. But I am yours, completely, and now there is a life between us that I will protect with everything I have." His gaze dropped to her mouth. "That protection doesn't have an expiration date." "What if I leave anyway?" His smile was quiet and absolute. "Then I will find you. I will dismantle every obstacle between here and Heathrow. You can despise me, fight me, draw blood, but you are not walking out of my life, Zara. Not now. Not ever." And the certainty in his voice, the total absence of performance, no threat, no rage, just fact, terrified her in a way that had no clean border with desire. But what Zara didn't know yet, standing in that high-rise with a crime lord's hands cradling her face like something breakable, was that she had secrets of her own. Her fellowship, her funding, her very reason for arriving in Seoul 3 months ago. None of it was what she had been told. And when the truth surfaced about who had really positioned her in Marcus Kwon's orbit, the pregnancy would be the simplest problem they had. If you want to find out whether Zara escapes or stays, whether the truth breaks them or binds them, subscribe now. I promise you, this story is only getting started. Zara didn't sleep that night. She lay in the dark on Marcus's side of his vast, silent bed, his arm draped across her waist with a possessiveness that didn't soften even in unconsciousness, and she stared at the ceiling doing math she didn't want to do. 11 weeks, maybe 12. Her hand drifted to her still, flat stomach, and the reality kept arriving in waves. A baby, with this man, with whatever this man was. Syndicate. The word kept surfacing. She'd heard it once before tonight, half whispered by a junior attaché at a British trade event 2 months ago. Something about the Gumho Group, about a man named Kwon who had restructured Seoul's underground economy the way other men restructured corporations. She hadn't paid it full attention. She was paying it full attention now. When the Han River turned silver with early light, she made her decision with the clarity that only comes from not sleeping. She needed to leave. Not today, he would be watching, but soon. She needed time, distance, a plan that didn't fall apart the moment he looked at her. Marcus stirred. His grip tightened before his eyes opened, instinct before consciousness. He looked at her in the grey morning light, like he was cataloguing her, checking for damage or departure. Did you rest? His voice was rough, still half submerged in sleep. No. She saw no reason to lie now. Something moved in his expression. His palm came to rest flat against her stomach, over the fabric of her shirt, warm and still and unbearably intimate. We'll see a doctor this morning. Private clinic. Cheongdam-dong. Dr. Yoon is the best maternal specialist in Seoul. He studied her face. I know you're angry with me, but your health is not something I will negotiate on. She wanted to throw something. She also wanted a doctor. She picked the more useful truth. Fine, she said, but I am not spending the rest of this pregnancy locked in your apartment. His mouth curved. Who said anything about locking you up? He sat up, the sheets pooling at his waist, the serpent tattoo catching the morning light. You can go wherever you want, Zara. The only condition is that Seo-jun and Hannah go with you. Who? My people. He said it simply. Security. Having you in my life makes you a target. I have enemies who would be very happy to remind me of that fact through you. A chill moved through her. What kind of enemies? The kind who don't send warning letters. His eyes met hers directly. So yes, Dongdaemun Market, Gyeongbokgung, Itaewon, wherever you want. But 2 meters and Seo-jun and Hannah. Not a prisoner, just surveilled by armed professionals at all times. Enormous improvement. But when she looked at him, past the control and the composure, she saw it. Fear. Real, unvarnished, living fear. He was terrified of something happening to her. And that realization did something to her anger that she wasn't ready to examine. Get dressed, he said, standing. We'll eat at that place near Bukchon you dragged me to. The one with the sweet potato latte. She blinked. You hated that latte. Deeply. He disappeared into his closet and emerged in slate-grey trousers and a white shirt, rolling the sleeves to his forearms. But you finished yours, and then drank half of mine, because yours wasn't sweet enough. His eyes found hers. And you need to eat something gentle. Zara's throat tightened against her will. How was she supposed to build a wall against a man who remembered which half of his drink she'd stolen? The cafe was exactly as she remembered it, narrow and warm, tucked between old Hanok walls in a neighborhood that moved slowly by Seoul standards. the smell of roasted grains and butter floating out to the street. The elderly owner, Mr. Choi, greeted them with such genuine warmth that Zara almost forgot, for a full 30 seconds, the circumstances that had brought her here. Marcus sat across from her with his hands wrapped around a cup of green tea, watching her eat with an expression she could only describe as careful hunger. Like a man who had been given something he expected to lose. "You're staring," she said. "Yes," he agreed, and did not stop. "This doesn't fix anything, you know." She gestured vaguely at the food, the cafe, the quiet normalcy of it. "You can't just feed me sweet potato lattes and pretend none of it happened." "I know." His thumb traced over his knuckle, a small, private gesture she recognized by now as his version of restraint. "I don't expect you to forget. I expect to earn the right to sit across from you every morning until you decide what you want to do with me." The window shattered. Glass came in fast and sideways, and Zara's scream was still forming when Marcus's body covered hers, taking her off the chair and onto the floor beneath the table in one motion. His arm curved around her head. The other was already reaching behind him. More shots. Someone screaming from the kitchen. Sojun and Hannah moving like they had rehearsed this, which they had. Weapons appearing from nowhere, returning fire through the broken window with mechanical precision. "Don't move," Marcus said against her ear. His voice had changed completely, all warmth stripped out. What remained was cold, pure, functional. He fired twice past the edge of the table. Somewhere outside, a motorcycle engine died mid-rev. The silence that followed had a texture to it. Wrong and wrong. "Zara," he said, shifting off her carefully the moment the shooting stopped. His hands moved over her arms, her legs, her face. Methodical, precise, barely controlled panic beneath a surface of ice. "Where are you hurt?" "My arm. Glass. It's not bad." When his eyes found the cut, something moved across his face that she had no word for. Dark and volcanic, and deeply, fundamentally personal. "Look at me." He cupped her face with both hands. "Just me. Breathe." "Someone just tried to kill us in a cafe," she said, and her voice was doing something strange. "I know." His thumbs moved across her cheeks. "And I will handle it. But right now, I need you breathing." "Sojun," he said without looking up. "Status. 2 shooters, both down. Street is clear. Police in 4 minutes. We have 3. He pulled her to her feet, keeping his body between her and the open windows. "Mr. Choi will be compensated and protected," he added, already steering her toward the back. "I'm sorry about your window, sir." Even now he was managing everything. The Mercedes was running when they came out the back, Hannah behind the wheel. Within 60 seconds they were moving through Seoul streets at a speed that suggested legal considerations had been temporarily suspended. Zara's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She looked down and saw blood on Marcus's white shirt. Hers, from where he'd pressed his sleeve against her arm. The sight of it broke something loose inside her. "I can't breathe," she said. "Yes, you can." His hand came to the back of her head, pressing her face into his neck. 4 counts in, 4 counts out. His chest moved against hers, steady and deliberate. "Match me." She tried. She matched him. And slowly, somewhere between his heartbeat and the smell of his cologne, the panic receded enough to think. Who were they? The Park Gyum family, most likely. His voice was level. They've been trying to consolidate control of the port routes for 2 years. Targeting you was a message. A message, she repeated. That I have a vulnerability. His hand tightened against her head, protective and possessive all at once. They won't send another one. He said it the way people say the sun rises. Fact. Done. Non-negotiable. We're going to Jeju, he said. I have a house there. Private. Secure. That's not a request. No. He turned to look at her, and his eyes were full of something she had no defences against. I almost lost you in a cafe that smelled like roasted grain and butter. There is no version of today where I am not taking you somewhere I can protect you properly. She looked out the window at Seoul blurring past, the city she had loved from her first week here, the markets and the palace walls, and the river that changed colour with every season. It looked different now, like a stage set, like something that had always had wings and ropes and trapdoors she'd never looked for. Somewhere in the front seat, Hannah was the man who'd put her in danger, and was now the only thing standing between her and it. The island house wasn't a house. It was a compound made to look like one. Modern and seamless, volcanic stone and floor-to-ceiling glass, the kind of beauty that could distract you from the guard rotation if you let it. Zara did not let it. She spent 5 days cataloguing everything. The camera positions, the shift changes, the 15-minute gap in the perimeter patrol every morning at 9:30, when the guard on the west side took his break by the stone wall at the far edge of the property. Marcus watched her, like he always watched her, completely and without apology. But he was also disappearing for hours into the study, and when he came back he smelled like stress and cold coffee and whatever violence he had been arranging from a distance. He came to bed late and held her like he was running out of time. She almost felt guilty about what she was planning. Almost. The call she'd managed from a borrowed phone before leaving Seoul had done something. Her friend Necker had filed a missing person report with the British consulate. Someone was looking for her. That meant there was still a world outside this beautiful prison that knew she existed. That was enough. Thursday came. Marcus left for Seoul before sunrise, meeting with his remaining lieutenants. He'd kissed her forehead and promised to be back before dark, and she'd nodded into his collar and started counting hours. She was through the kitchen door at 9:22, passport in her coat pocket, dark clothes, hair pulled back. The beach path stretched ahead, volcanic rock and wild coastal grass, the main road visible in the distance. She ran. The black vehicle was parked at the public beach access, engine running. She'd been about to flag it down when the passenger door opened and a woman stepped out. Mid-40s, dark hair in a severe knot, a suit that cost more than Zara's monthly fellowship stipend and carried itself like government issue. Zara Maddox, British accent, clipped and precise. My name is Deputy Director Callahan. I'm attached to the British Intelligence Liaison at the Seoul Consulate. Your contact Necker filed a distress report on your behalf. Zara's knees almost went. Oh, thank God. She moved forward across the sand. I need help getting out before he comes back, before Kwon Jae-sung. Callahan's smile was the kind that lived only in the upper half of the face. We're aware of his timeline. We've had surveillance on this property for 72 hours. We were waiting for reduced security presence. Something in Zara's chest went sideways. How did you know the security would be reduced today? We track his movements. Callahan produced a tablet from inside the vehicle. Zara, we need to talk about your fellowship, your funding. The reason you were placed in Seoul. Placed. The word landed wrong. Atlas Meridian Research, your fellowship program. Callahan turned the tablet screen toward her. It doesn't exist as a research institution. It's a joint intelligence front, GCHQ affiliated with a NATO intelligence sharing agreement. The screen showed files. Zara's files, with dates on them that predated her application by 4 months. Zara's vision tunneled. You were selected 18 months ago. Callahan's voice stayed clinical, professional, as though she were explaining a logistics issue. 29 years old, no living family, dual background in international finance and Korean studies, documented history in Seoul's academic circuit. You were the ideal profile for a long-term proximity operation. Proximity operation. Your role was to integrate into Kwon's social circle, build trust, document his network. The fellowship gave you legitimate cover and a reason to be in his orbit indefinitely. Callahan tilted her head. You exceeded every expectation. The personal relationship, the level of access you achieved. And now, she paused briefly. This pregnancy represents an asset position we couldn't have engineered deliberately. Asset position. The beach tilted. Zara sat down in the sand before she chose to. Her hands pressed against her stomach. I didn't know, she said. We know you didn't. That was the architecture of the operation. An unwitting asset is a credible asset. Callahan crouched to her level. Now we need you to come with us. Debrief. Testimony. Full witness protection for you and the child. New identity. Safety. Safety. Zara repeated the word, like she was testing whether it was real. The sound of a car engine cut through the coastal wind before Callahan finished speaking. Moving fast on the road above the beach. Too fast, too direct. The black Mercedes came to a stop at the beach access point with the controlled violence of a vehicle driven by someone who had been watching the cameras the entire time. 3 doors opened. Marcus emerged from the back, Seo-jun and Hannah flanking him. But it was his face that made Zara's chest split clean down the middle. He looked wrecked, furious and terrified, and something else she had no word for. His eyes found her across the sand and stayed there. You ran, he said. The words came out quiet, which was worse than shouting. I had to try. Her voice broke on the last word. He said it back to her, like he was learning a language that made no sense. Had to try. His gaze moved to Callahan, and something settled in him. Settled and sharpened at the same time. Deputy Director. I wondered how long before London moved. Callahan's hand drifted toward her jacket. Marcus was faster. The gun appeared without theatre, aimed with the calm of a man who had done this before. I wouldn't, he said. Your backup is 20 minutes out. We both know the math. His eyes returned to Zara. Still that look. Like she was something he had built with his hands and was watching come apart. Zara, Callahan said evenly, come with me. You're a British citizen. You have rights and protections, and a child who deserves to be raised without this. She's carrying my child, Marcus said. His voice went low and absolute. And whatever you think you are offering her, it is not safety. It is leverage under a different name. You trapped her, Callahan said. He did, Zara said. Both of them looked at her. She felt the word leave her mouth before she examined it. He trapped me. And you manufactured me. She looked at Callahan. You built my life around a target and pointed me at him and called it a fellowship. You made me into a weapon I never agreed to be. We were building a case against a dangerous criminal, Callahan said. By using me without my knowledge. Zara stood. Her legs were steadier than they had any right to be. That is not protection. That is just a cleaner kind of control. She turned to Marcus, at the gun he'd lowered slightly, at the way he was watching her like she was the only thing in his field of vision. At least when you trapped me, I was awake for it. She turned back to Callahan. How long would witness protection last? The silence that followed was its own answer. What happens to me when I'm no longer useful? When the testimony is given and the trial is over and your operation is closed? Another constructed identity? Another fellowship that doesn't exist? Callahan said nothing. Zara pressed her hand against her stomach. Her daughter, she was already certain it was a daughter, kicked once. Decisive. I'm staying, she said. Patterson's professional mask did not crack, but something behind it did. You're making a decision you can't walk back from, Miss Maddox. I know. And it's mine to make. Not yours, not the services. Mine. Callahan studied her for a long moment. Then she stepped back toward the vehicle. This isn't finished, Mr. Kwon. We'll be watching. Then watch, Marcus said quietly. His gun disappeared. His eyes were still on Zara. Every morning I'm going to give her a reason to stay. That's something you never gave her. Callahan got in the car. It pulled away slowly, giving Zara the length of the beach to reconsider. She didn't move. When the vehicle disappeared around the coastal road, Marcus dismissed Seo Jun and Hannah with a look. They retreated to the car without a word. He crossed the sand to her slowly, like the first night. Like he understood that rushing would break something. You stayed, he said. His voice had shed everything except the core of it. She looked up at him, at the serpent tattoo at his collar, at the shadows under his eyes that hadn't been there 3 months ago, at the hands that had killed and held and trapped and shielded her. You told me once you'd rather I hated you from inside a fortress than mourned me from outside one, she said. She exhaled. At least that was honest. At least I always knew where I stood with you, which is more than I can say for the people who built my life around a lie and called it opportunity. His arms came around her and the force of it nearly took her breath. He was shaking. This controlled, lethal, impossible man was shaking as he held her on a black sand beach with the East China Sea crashing around them. I thought you were gone, he said into her hair. When the alert came through when I saw you on the camera. He stopped. He didn't finish. He didn't need to. She pressed her face into his neck. I'm here. He pulled back just far enough to cup her face. His thumbs moved across her cheeks, slow and careful. His eyes were blazing. I will prove this was worth it. Every day, Zara. Every day, I will prove it. She didn't believe him yet. Maybe she wouldn't for a long time. But when he kissed her, desperate and gentle in the same breath, she understood something she hadn't before. She wasn't forgiving him. She was choosing. And that was the difference. For the first time since she'd arrived in Seoul, since long before that, this was something she was doing on her own terms. We need to leave Jeju, he said, his forehead against hers. Callahan knows where we are. She'll come back with more. Where? New Zealand. He framed her face in his hands. a coastal property registered so deep in shell companies that British intelligence would need 3 years to trace it. I'll dismantle the operations, turn what I have on the remaining network over to Korean authorities in exchange for immunity. Walk away. You'd actually do that? What I built was never an empire. It was a wall. He said it quietly. Built it after I lost someone I couldn't protect, and told myself control was the same as safety. His thumb moved over her cheekbone. But you've been showing me for 3 months that those aren't the same thing. She looked at him. And the baby? What kind of life are we building for her? A quiet one. The word came out like something he'd been holding for a long time. Safe. Ordinary. Or as ordinary as it gets when your mother was an unwitting intelligence asset and your father used to run the Gumho group. Zara almost laughed. She'll have a story. We'll tell her the truth. When she's old enough. All of it. The beginning. What I did, what was done to you. His voice was steady and serious. She deserves parents who don't pretend they're something they're not. And if she comes to me angry someday, if she looks at me the way you look at me now, then I'll spend the rest of her life earning back what I cost her. He lifted Zara off the sand, one arm under her knees, and she grabbed his shoulders out of reflex. What are you doing? Taking you back up, he said. We have a plane to catch, a life to take apart and rebuild from scratch. He began climbing the stone path, and she let herself be carried. She looked back once at the beach, at the tyre tracks Callahan's vehicle had left in the sand, already blurring at the edges where the wind was erasing them. Ready to disappear with me? He asked. She looked at him, at this man who had stolen her choice and was now offering it back to her one morning at a time. Yeah, she said. Let's disappear. 7 months later, in a small coastal town in New Zealand that appeared on no tourist map and in no government database, Zara watched the last of the afternoon light stretch across the water from the kitchen window, while Marcus, now quietly going by James Kwon on the documents So Jun had procured, assembled a crib in the next room. She could hear him arguing with the instructions in a mix of Korean and English that made her press her hand over her mouth to keep from laughing out loud. Their daughter kicked in response, already opinionated. I heard that, he said from the doorway, leaning against the frame with a screwdriver in his hand, and an expression she had been cataloguing for months. The one where he looked at her like she was something he was still not entirely convinced he was allowed to have. The crib manual is in 5 languages, and none of them are helpful, he said. She turned from the window. She's going to dismantle it the moment she figures out she can anyway. Then she's her mother's daughter. He crossed the kitchen and stood behind her, his hands settling over hers on the curve of her stomach. His chin came to rest on her shoulder. The serpent tattoo was gone, removed over 3 sessions in Auckland at a clinic that asked no questions. She missed it, which was a complicated feeling she'd stopped arguing with. Do you regret it? She asked. Any of it? He was quiet for a moment, the way he was quiet when he was actually considering something instead of building an answer. I regret how it started, he said finally. I will always regret what I took from you, and how I took it. He pressed a kiss against her temple. But you, this, no, never. She leaned back into him, and he held her the way he always held her now. Not like something he owned, like something he was grateful for. Every morning he asked if she wanted to stay. Every morning she said yes. It wasn't forgiveness. It was something harder won than that. It was a choice she made with full information, in full daylight, with both hands. Their daughter kicked again, insistent, alive, entirely herself. Outside the window, the Pacific moved in long silver swells, indifferent and beautiful and endless. Inside the kitchen, Marcus was murmuring something against her hair in Korean, too quiet to hear fully, and she let it wash over her without translating it. She'd learned enough to know it was a promise. Some love stories begin clean. Ours began in fire she'd written in the journal she'd started the month they arrived, for their daughter to read someday. But fire changes things, and sometimes what survives is worth more than what was there before. She closed the journal and turned to help him finish the crib. If you made it all the way here, thank you for staying with Zara and Marcus through every complicated turn of this. If you want more stories about love that doesn't apologize for being messy, subscribe now and tell me in the comments, did she make the right call? Or would you have gotten in Callahan's car? I'll see you in the next one.